I told my husband Trevor I was flying to Portland for a 3-day medical conference. He kissed me goodbye at 6 a.m., wished me safe travels, and promised to miss me terribly. But my flight got canceled due to storms, and I decided to surprise him by coming home early. Instead, I got the surprise of a lifetime when I walked into our bedroom and found him with my supposed best friend Cassandra wearing the lingerie I'd bought for our anniversary. The look of absolute terror in his eyes when he saw me standing in the doorway would haunt him for months, but not nearly as much as what I did next.
Before we dive back in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. And if this story hit home, hit that subscribe button. I've got something really special lined up for tomorrow. My name is Dr. Rachel Montenegro, and I've spent the last 12 years building what most people would consider a perfect life in the charming coastal town of Millhaven. As head of cardiology at Millhaven General Hospital, I've earned respect through dedication, precision, and an almost obsessive attention to detail that has saved countless lives and built my reputation as one of the region's top specialists. Our home reflects that same meticulous care, a restored Victorian mansion on Elm Street that Trevor and I renovated together during our early marriage years. Every room tells the story of our partnership, from the kitchen where we'd cook elaborate Sunday dinners to the library where I'd study for medical board certifications while he worked on his landscape architecture projects. Trevor appeared to be the perfect husband for a busy surgeon. As a freelance landscape designer, he had flexible hours that complemented my demanding hospital schedule. While I worked 12-hour shifts saving lives, he managed our household with apparent devotion, handling everything from grocery shopping to social coordination with the efficiency of someone who genuinely wanted to support his wife's career. For 8 years of marriage, this arrangement seemed ideal. Trevor would have dinner waiting when I came home exhausted from complex surgeries. He'd plan romantic weekend getaways to help me decompress from the constant pressure of life and death decisions. He handled our social calendar, maintained relationships with friends, and even organized my birthday celebrations with the thoughtfulness of someone who truly understood my preferences. The medical community in Millhaven had embraced us as the power couple who'd figured out work-life balance. Dr. Montenegro, the brilliant surgeon, supported by her devoted husband who'd built his own successful business around her demanding career. We were frequently invited to speak at couples events about maintaining relationships under professional pressure. Looking back now, I can identify exactly when the inconsistencies began, though at the time I dismissed them as natural adjustments to our evolving careers and social lives. It started with Trevor's sudden enthusiasm for fitness activities that required extensive time away from home. He joined CrossFit Millhaven, claiming he needed more structure in his exercise routine since working from home had made him sedentary. 3 evenings per week plus Saturday morning sessions that stretched from 8 a.m. until nearly noon when you included his post-workout socializing with his new gym friends. Then came his renewed interest in photography, a hobby from his college years that had been dormant throughout our marriage. This required weekend trips to scenic locations around the Pacific Northwest, often leaving Friday afternoon and returning Sunday evening. The artistic development was important for his landscape design business, he explained, and I admired his professional growth even as it meant more evenings alone after exhausting hospital shifts. His phone habits changed subtly but noticeably. Trevor had always been casual about his device, leaving it on counters while he showered or worked in the garden, but gradually it began accompanying him everywhere. Bathroom trips, quick runs to the mailbox, even moving from the kitchen to the living room warranted bringing his phone along. When I'd comment on his improved photography skills after viewing his weekend trip pictures, Trevor would deflect with false modesty that seemed uncharacteristic of someone typically eager to discuss his creative work. The images themselves were technically proficient, but somehow impersonal, lacking the intimate perspective I expected from someone passionate about rediscovered artistry. Social dynamics shifted in ways I attributed to natural friendship evolution. Trevor began declining invitations to hospital events, claiming my medical colleagues made him feel inadequate, despite years of comfortable interaction with the same people. Our dinner parties became less frequent, with Trevor citing increased business demands that required evening client consultations. Most telling were the inconsistencies in his stories about daily activities. Trevor had always been detail-oriented in his communication, sharing specifics about client meetings, project challenges, and business development activities, but his accounts became vague and sometimes contradictory when I'd ask follow-up questions days later about people or projects he had mentioned. The CrossFit schedule changed frequently without explanation. Photography trips were planned and canceled with unusual unpredictability. Client meetings began occurring at unusual hours and locations that didn't align with his previous business patterns. The revelation began 3 weeks ago when I received confirmation for the Pacific Northwest Cardiology Symposium in Portland, a 3-day conference I'd been anticipating for months. The event promised cutting-edge research presentations and networking opportunities that could influence my department's future direction at Millhaven General Hospital.
Trevor's response to my travel announcement was enthusiastic in a way that should have triggered immediate suspicion. Rather than his usual disappointed acceptance of my work-related absences, he practically celebrated the opportunity for me to advance my professional development. He volunteered to handle additional household responsibilities, insisted on driving me to the airport despite the early departure time, and suggested I extend the trip if beneficial networking opportunities arose. The morning of my scheduled departure, Trevor woke before my 5 a.m. alarm, prepared coffee exactly as I preferred, and helped carry my luggage to the car with the attentiveness of someone eager to ensure every detail supported my successful trip. His goodbye kiss lingered longer than usual, accompanied by expressions of love and pride that felt performative rather than spontaneous. But severe weather had different plans. Pacific Northwest storms grounded flights throughout the region, and by 10 a.m., the airline had canceled my connection with no rebooking options until the following day. The conference organizers sent notifications that day one presentations would be live streamed for registered participants unable to travel due to weather emergencies. Standing in the airport terminal, watching other frustrated travelers make alternative arrangements, I made an impulsive decision that would change everything. Rather than spending the day in airport limbo or checking into a hotel to wait for rescheduled flights, I would surprise Trevor by returning home early and catching up on the conference presentations from our comfortable library. The taxi ride back to Millhaven gave me time to imagine Trevor's delighted surprise at my unexpected early return. Perhaps we could spend the recovered day together, maybe visit that new restaurant downtown he'd mentioned wanting to try, or work together in the garden where we'd shared some of our happiest moments during the house renovation years. But as I quietly opened our front door at 2:30 p.m., expecting to find Trevor working peacefully in his home office, I heard sounds from upstairs that no wife should ever have to identify. What I discovered when I climbed those stairs would shatter not just my marriage, but my understanding of how completely I'd been manipulated by someone I'd trusted with my life. In part 2, you'll learn exactly what I found in our bedroom, how long this betrayal had been occurring, and why the evidence I gathered that afternoon would become the foundation for the most systematic takedown of a cheating husband that Millhaven had ever witnessed. This one took us ages to get right, so if you're loving it, hitting subscribe would honestly mean the world to us. Okay, back to business. In part 1, I told you how my husband Trevor had been acting suspicious for months, while I dismissed the signs as natural life changes. My flight to Portland got canceled, so I decided to surprise him by coming home early for my medical conference. Instead, I got the shock of my life. What I found when I walked into our bedroom at 2:30 p.m. that Tuesday afternoon would destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The sounds I heard climbing our Victorian staircase were unmistakable. Intimate whispers, movement, the creaking of our antique bed frame that Trevor and I had carefully restored during our 3rd year of marriage. My medical training kicked in immediately. Elevated heart rate, tunnel vision, the kind of adrenaline surge I experienced during emergency surgeries when split-second decisions meant life or death.
I pushed open our bedroom door, expecting to find evidence of an affair, but nothing could have prepared me for this specific betrayal waiting inside. There was Trevor, completely naked, with Cassandra Williams, my supposed best friend of 6 years, my maid of honor, the woman who had held my hand through my father's cancer diagnosis and celebrated every career milestone with genuine enthusiasm. But the image burned into my memory wasn't just their naked bodies intertwined in my marital bed. Cassandra was wearing the red silk lingerie set I had purchased 3 months earlier for our wedding anniversary, still in its original packaging, hidden in my dresser drawer. The intimate garment I had chosen specifically to surprise my husband was adorning my best friend's body while she betrayed me in the most fundamental way possible. The look of absolute terror in Trevor's eyes when he spotted me standing in the doorway was almost comical. His face drained of color so completely that my medical instincts briefly worried about cardiovascular shock. Cassandra's reaction was different. A flash of something that looked almost like satisfaction before her expression shifted to manufactured horror and shame. "Rachel, I can explain," Trevor stammered, scrambling to cover himself with our wedding quilt while Cassandra grabbed her clothes from the floor. But I didn't respond. Instead, I stood perfectly still, my surgeon's mind automatically cataloging details with the same systematic precision I applied to complex surgical procedures. The room reeked of unfamiliar perfume, something expensive and floral that Cassandra had never worn during our friendship. 2 wine glasses sat on my antique nightstand, half-empty bottles of the vintage Bordeaux Trevor and I had been saving for our 10th wedding anniversary. My husband's wedding ring lay carelessly on the dresser, removed with the casual disregard of someone who had been practicing this routine. As Trevor continued his panicked explanations and Cassandra hurried to dress while avoiding eye contact, something unexpected happened. The emotional devastation I should have been experiencing was temporarily overwhelmed by the analytical mindset that had carried me through years of medical training and complex surgical procedures.
I began noticing details that revealed the systematic nature of this betrayal. The bedroom showed evidence of regular intimate encounters, small changes to furniture positioning, different toiletries in our bathroom. Even the way our bed was made suggested someone else's routine presence in our most private space. My perfume collection on the vanity had been rearranged, with several expensive bottles showing usage levels inconsistent with my own application patterns. Cassandra had apparently been helping herself to my personal items during their secret meetings, treating our home like her personal playground while I worked exhausting hospital shifts. The closet revealed additional evidence. My jewelry box had been disturbed, with pieces moved from their usual positions. Several of my scarves were arranged differently than my habitual organizational system. Even my side of the closet showed signs of someone else's presence. Hangers displaced, shoes not aligned according to my typical arrangements. Trevor's explanation became increasingly desperate as he realized I wasn't responding with the expected emotional breakdown. "This just happened, Rachel. We never planned this. Cassandra came over to discuss your birthday surprise, and we had some wine, and things just got carried away. It doesn't mean anything." But the evidence contradicted his frantic claims. The wine glasses were positioned with the familiarity of routine use. Cassandra's movements around our bedroom showed intimate knowledge of drawer locations and room layout that required multiple previous visits. Most damning, she had a key to our house, something I had never authorized, hanging from her purse alongside our spare garage door opener. "How long?" I asked quietly, interrupting Trevor's rambling justification. My voice carried the same calm authority I used when delivering terminal diagnoses to patients' families: controlled, professional, devastating in its composure. Neither answered immediately. Cassandra finished dressing and mumbled something about this being a terrible mistake before practically running from our bedroom. Trevor sat on the edge of our bed, still naked, looking like a child caught destroying something precious. "How long, Trevor?" I repeated, and something in my tone made him understand that lies would only make this worse. 6 months.
It started after the hospital charity gala when you had to leave early for that emergency surgery. Cassandra stayed to help me clean up, and we talked about how hard your schedule was on both of us, and she understood what it was like to feel neglected by someone so focused on their career. 6 months. Half a year of systematic deception while I worked 60-hour weeks, saving lives, and trusting that my husband and best friend were supporting my demanding career with love and loyalty. As Trevor continued his confession, describing months of calculated betrayal disguised as innocent friendship support, my medical training's systematic approach took complete control. Instead of emotional collapse, I began mental documentation with the same methodical precision I applied to complex cardiac cases. I had walked into this situation as a devastated wife, but I was walking out as Dr. Rachel Montenegro, someone who had spent 12 years analyzing complex problems, gathering comprehensive evidence, and developing strategic solutions under extreme pressure. While Trevor dressed and attempted damage control through increasingly desperate explanations, I began photographing the scene with my phone. The wine glasses with their fingerprints, the lingerie Cassandra had abandoned in her haste to escape, the spare key she had dropped during her frantic exit, the displaced items throughout our bedroom that told the story of regular intimate encounters. My surgeon's hands remained steady as I documented each piece of evidence, though Trevor's face grew increasingly pale as he realized I wasn't responding to his emotional appeals for forgiveness and understanding. "Rachel, please, we can work through this. It was just physical. It didn't mean anything emotional. I love you. I've always loved you. This was just a stupid mistake that got out of hand." But 6 months of systematic deception wasn't a mistake. It was a choice made repeatedly, involving elaborate planning and coordination between two people I had trusted most in the world. As I finished documenting the immediate evidence, I realized this discovery was just the beginning. If Trevor and Cassandra had been carrying on for 6 months, there would be digital evidence, financial records, patterns of deception woven throughout every aspect of our shared life that I had been too trusting to notice. That evening, while Trevor slept fitfully on our guest room couch, I began the most important investigation of my life. What I uncovered about the scope of their betrayal would make the bedroom discovery seem almost innocent by comparison. Previously, I caught my husband Trevor in our bedroom with my best friend Cassandra, wearing my anniversary lingerie. 6 months of systematic betrayal disguised as innocent friendship support. Now, while Trevor slept on the guest room couch, I was about to discover that what I'd witnessed was only the surface of their deception. That night, while Trevor tossed fitfully downstairs, I transformed our home office into a makeshift investigation center. My medical training had taught me that accurate diagnosis required comprehensive data collection, and I approached this marital autopsy with the same methodical precision I applied to complex cardiac cases. Trevor's laptop sat on our shared desk, password protected but not impenetrable. During our 8-year marriage, we had maintained an open technology policy, shared passwords, joint access to accounts, mutual transparency that I now realized had been completely one-sided. His password remained Montenegro 2015, the year we bought our Victorian mansion, apparently unchanged despite months of calculated infidelity.
The browser history revealed a timeline that made my chest tighten with clinical recognition. Hotel reservations dating back 7 months, not 6 as Trevor had claimed. The Millhaven Harbor Inn, barely 3 miles from our house, booked for Tuesday and Thursday afternoons during my regular surgery schedules. The reservations were made under Trevor's name, always the same room, Suite 47, with its private entrance and harbor view that we had admired during weekend walks along the waterfront. But the hotel bookings were just the beginning. His email archives contained correspondence with Cassandra that chronicled the evolution of the relationship with disturbing detail. It had started innocently enough. Messages about my birthday party planning, discussions about my work stress, shared concerns about my long hospital hours. But gradually, the tone shifted from friendly support to intimate emotional bonding. The messages revealed that Cassandra had been positioning herself as the understanding confidant who appreciated Trevor's sacrifices in supporting my demanding career.
She validated his feelings of neglect, reinforced his perception that I was too career-focused to properly appreciate him, and slowly created an emotional intimacy that justified their eventual physical relationship. Trevor's phone, which he had carelessly left charging in the kitchen during his panicked confession, contained even more damaging evidence. Text message threads with Cassandra revealed the elaborate coordination required to maintain their affair. They had developed code words for scheduling meetings, shared calendars tracking my hospital shifts, and detailed knowledge of my conference schedules and social commitments. The most devastating discovery was a folder of intimate photographs taken in our bedroom, our kitchen, even our backyard garden during what appeared to be romantic afternoon encounters while I saved lives at Millhaven General. These weren't spontaneous moments of passion. They were carefully staged romantic scenes that mocked every meaningful location in our shared home. My systematic investigation revealed that Trevor and Cassandra's affair had required significant financial investment that I had unknowingly subsidized through our joint accounts. The hotel room charges appeared on our shared credit card, disguised among Trevor's legitimate business expenses for client meetings. Over 7 months, these client consultations had cost nearly $4,000. Restaurant charges told another story of deception. Expensive lunches at Romano's Bistro, the intimate Italian restaurant where Trevor had proposed to me, now appeared regularly on our credit card statements during my Tuesday surgery blocks. The wine selections matched the vintage bottles I had discovered in our bedroom, premium selections from our shared collection that Trevor had been sharing with his mistress. Gift purchases revealed the depth of his emotional investment in this relationship. Jewelry charges from Millhaven Fine Arts, the boutique where Trevor had purchased my engagement ring, showed recent expensive acquisitions that I had never received. A pearl necklace worth $800, diamond earrings valued at $1,200, all charged to our joint account while I worked overtime shifts to support our comfortable lifestyle. But the most infuriating discovery was the vacation planning correspondence in Trevor's email. He and Cassandra had researched weekend getaways to coastal resorts, discussing romantic destinations and intimate accommodations that mirrored the trips Trevor and I had taken during our early marriage years. They had planned to tell me that Trevor needed a photography retreat, while Cassandra would claim a spa weekend with her sister. The financial analysis revealed that our joint accounts had funded every aspect of their relationship while I remained completely unaware of the systematic drainage of resources that I had earned through exhausting medical practice. Trevor wasn't just cheating on me emotionally and physically, he was stealing from me to finance his betrayal. Cassandra's social media profiles revealed another layer of calculated deception that extended far beyond their private affair. Her Instagram account showed subtle but unmistakable evidence of regular access to our home during my absence. Photos of elaborate meals prepared in what was clearly our kitchen, taken during times when she claimed to be working late at her marketing firm. She had posted artistic shots of our garden's rare orchid collection, flowers that Trevor and I had cultivated together during weekend bonding activities. The captions praised the peaceful sanctuary where creativity flows, giving her followers the impression that she had access to a beautiful private garden without revealing whose home provided this backdrop. Most disturbing were the carefully cropped photos showing portions of our bedroom decor, the antique lamp I had inherited from my grandmother, the handmade quilt from our anniversary trip to Savannah, the vintage mirror Trevor and I had discovered at an estate sale during our second year of marriage. Cassandra was essentially documenting her conquest of my private spaces while presenting them as her own aesthetic discoveries. Her Facebook check-ins revealed the scope of their public activities. Dinner dates at restaurants where she had accompanied Trevor while claiming to be at work events, art gallery openings where they appeared as a couple while I worked late-night emergency surgeries, wine tastings and cultural events that constituted a complete parallel social life funded by my medical practice and hidden behind elaborate scheduling deceptions.
By 4 a.m., I had compiled comprehensive evidence of systematic betrayal that extended far beyond sexual infidelity into financial theft, social fraud, and emotional manipulation that had operated for 7 months, while I trusted both parties with complete vulnerability. The scope of their deception was so elaborate that it required careful planning to address appropriately. My medical training had taught me that successful treatment required understanding the complete pathology before implementing intervention strategies. Trevor and Cassandra hadn't just betrayed me. They had constructed an entire alternative reality that existed parallel to our marriage, funded by my resources and protected by my professional dedication. The evidence would support multiple approaches for addressing their systematic deception. Legal consultation could determine whether financial theft charges were appropriate. Social consequences could expose their fraud to the community that had been unknowingly facilitating their public relationship. Professional implications could affect both their careers and Millhaven's interconnected business community. But I wanted more than just immediate consequences. I wanted them to experience the same systematic deception they had inflicted on me, the same gradual revelation of reality that would strip away their assumptions about control and security. As dawn approached, and Trevor remained passed out on our guest room couch, I began designing a response strategy that would demonstrate exactly how it felt to have your entire foundation of trust systematically undermined by people you had considered most loyal and supportive. The investigation was complete, but the real work was just beginning. What Trevor and Cassandra had done to me over 7 months, I was about to return to them in 7 days. By the time I finished, everyone in Millhaven would understand exactly who they really were behind their carefully constructed facades. In Part 4, you'll see how I used their own tactics against them, turning their systematic deception into the perfect trap that would expose them publicly while giving them no way to escape the consequences of their calculated betrayal. Last time, I'd uncovered the full scope of Trevor and Cassandra's 7-month affair. Hotel rooms, expensive gifts, social media fraud, all funded by our joint accounts while they lived a parallel life in public. Now it was time for them to experience the same systematic deception they'd inflicted on me, but compressed into 7 unforgettable days. Wednesday morning arrived with Trevor approaching me like a wounded animal seeking forgiveness. He had spent the night rehearsing what he clearly believed would be a compelling reconciliation speech, complete with tears, promises, and elaborate plans for earning back my trust through couples therapy and renewed commitment to our marriage. But I had different plans. When Trevor began his carefully prepared apology over breakfast, I responded with the calm professionalism that had carried me through countless medical crises. "I've been thinking about what you said yesterday, and you're right. This was just physical attraction that got out of hand. People make mistakes." The relief on his face was almost comical. He immediately launched into enthusiastic agreement about how meaningless the affair had been, how much he loved me, how grateful he was that I understood the difference between physical temptation and emotional commitment. Trevor was so eager to believe his problems were solved that he completely missed the strategic calculation behind my measured response. "I think we should work through this privately," I continued, maintaining my composed demeanor while internally cataloging his reactions. "No need to involve other people or create unnecessary drama. But I do need some time to process everything, so I'm going to stay at the Millhaven Harbor Inn for a few nights while I sort through my feelings." Trevor practically volunteered to make the reservation himself, clearly thrilled that I was choosing the path of quiet reconciliation rather than public confrontation or immediate divorce proceedings. What he didn't realize was that I was reserving Suite 47, the same room where he and Cassandra had conducted their affair, and I had very specific plans for how those few nights would unfold. While Trevor celebrated what he perceived as his narrow escape from consequences, I began implementing a strategy that would give both him and Cassandra exactly the experience they had given me: systematic deception, gradual revelation, and the devastating discovery that people you trust most are capable of elaborate betrayal. Cassandra's guilt made her surprisingly easy to manipulate. She called within hours of the bedroom confrontation, her voice trembling with what sounded like genuine remorse, but was probably just fear of social consequences. "Rachel, I know you must hate me, but I need you to know that this wasn't planned. It just happened gradually, and we never meant for anyone to get hurt." I listened to her elaborate justification with the same clinical detachment I used when patients' families needed to process terminal diagnoses.
Cassandra was clearly hoping for either explosive anger that would make her feel appropriately punished, or immediate forgiveness that would restore our friendship and eliminate her guilt. Instead, she received something far more unsettling: my apparent understanding and mature perspective. Cassandra, I've been thinking about what happened, and I realize that maybe I've been neglecting both you and Trevor with my work schedule. You two found comfort in each other during a difficult time. It's not ideal, but it's human nature. The confusion in her voice was palpable. She had prepared for rage, tears, or complete rejection. My reasonable response left her uncertain about how to proceed, which created the perfect opening for my strategic manipulation.
Actually, I'd like to meet for coffee tomorrow to discuss this properly. I think we need to address what happened directly, rather than letting it destroy our friendship. There's a new place downtown, Coastal Grounds, that has private booths where we can talk without being overheard. Cassandra agreed immediately, clearly relieved that I was choosing mature discussion over dramatic confrontation. What she didn't know was that Coastal Grounds was directly across the street from Romanum's Bistro, where I had discovered their expensive lunch dates on our credit card statements. The meeting would give me the perfect opportunity to observe whether their relationship was truly ending or simply becoming more discreet. I spent Wednesday evening preparing for Thursday's coffee meeting with the same methodical attention I applied to complex surgical procedures: hidden recording equipment, strategically positioned seating, careful documentation of Cassandra's responses to specific questions that would reveal her true intentions and the actual depth of her relationship with Trevor. Thursday's coffee meeting with Cassandra proceeded exactly as I had predicted. She arrived early, nervous and overdressed, clearly expecting an emotional confrontation that would either end our friendship permanently or restore it through my magnanimous forgiveness. Instead, she encountered my systematic interrogation disguised as concerned friendship discussion. "I need to understand how this started," I said, maintaining my compassionate tone while recording every word. "Trevor says it began after the charity gala, but I sense there might have been emotional connection building before that night." Cassandra's relief at my apparent understanding made her surprisingly forthcoming. She described months of gradual emotional intimacy, shared frustrations about my work schedule, growing attraction that felt both inevitable and justified by my apparent neglect of both relationships. Her account revealed calculated emotional manipulation that had been building for nearly a year before becoming physical. Most importantly, she confirmed that their relationship was far from over. "We've decided to end the physical aspect," she said carefully, "but we can't just turn off the emotional connection. We're going to remain friends and support each other through this difficult transition." The careful phrasing revealed everything I needed to know. They had simply decided to become more discreet, not to end their relationship. My apparent forgiveness had convinced them that they could continue their affair with better operational security, probably assuming that my medical schedule would continue providing perfect cover for their ongoing deception. During our 2-hour conversation, I watched Trevor arrive at Romano's Bistro across the street, clearly expecting to meet Cassandra for one of their regular lunch dates. He waited 30 minutes, checking his phone repeatedly before leaving with obvious frustration. The coordination between them was still active, but my interference was already creating cracks in their communication system. That evening, I implemented the next phase of my strategy. Using the hotel industry connections I had developed through years of medical conference planning, I arranged for Suite 47 at the Millhaven Harbor Inn to be equipped with discrete recording equipment that would document any future encounters between Trevor and Cassandra. Friday brought the implementation of my social media strategy, designed to expose Cassandra's fraud while creating plausible deniability for my involvement.
Using professional contacts from Millhaven General's marketing department, I arranged for several seemingly coincidental social media posts that would gradually reveal the truth about Cassandra's deceptive online presence. The hospital's official Instagram account featured a behind-the-scenes story about my surgical schedule, including photos of our home's garden during my brief breaks between emergency procedures. The posts were time-stamped to correspond exactly with Cassandra's previous claims about spending peaceful afternoons in her creative sanctuary, making it clear to anyone comparing the content that she had been fraudulently presenting my private spaces as her own. Meanwhile, Trevor received what appeared to be a routine promotional email from Romano's Bistro, thanking their regular Tuesday lunch customers for their loyalty and offering special pricing for their favorite wine selections. The email was personalized with details about his and Cassandra's specific orders, making it obvious to anyone with access to our joint credit card statements that these weren't business meetings, but intimate dates. The beauty of this approach was its indirect nature. I wasn't making accusations or creating drama. I was simply allowing the truth to become visible to anyone who cared to notice the patterns. Trevor and Cassandra's deception was being exposed through their own documented behavior rather than through my direct confrontation. By Friday evening, I had received subtle inquiries from 3 different Millhaven General colleagues who had noticed discrepancies between Cassandra's social media presence and the hospital's posts about my home. The medical community's natural attention to detail was working in my favor, creating organic discovery of the deception without requiring my direct involvement. Saturday morning brought the most crucial phase of my strategy. I called Trevor from my hotel suite with carefully controlled excitement in my voice. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize that we need to rebuild our relationship from the ground up. I want to plan something special for us this weekend, something that shows how committed I am to making our marriage work. Trevor's enthusiasm was immediate and complete. He volunteered to cancel his photography plans, rearrange his schedule, and dedicate the entire weekend to relationship repair activities. What he didn't realize was that his eager cooperation was providing me with the perfect setup for the systematic revelation that would destroy both his and Cassandra's carefully constructed deceptions. I've made reservations for Sunday brunch at Romano's Bistro, the same place where we had our first anniversary dinner. I think it would be meaningful to return there and talk about rebuilding our foundation.
Trevor agreed immediately, apparently forgetting that Romano's was also the location of his regular intimate lunches with Cassandra. His failure to recognize the significance of my choice revealed how compartmentalized his thinking had become, treating his affair and his marriage as completely separate realities that never needed to intersect. But Sunday brunch at Romano's would force those realities to collide in ways that neither Trevor nor Cassandra could anticipate or control. The staff who had been serving their secret lunch dates would be witnessing Trevor's attempted reconciliation with his wife, creating exactly the kind of public exposure that would make their deception impossible to maintain. As I finalized the arrangements for Sunday's confrontation, I realized that everything Trevor and Cassandra had done to me over 7 months was about to be returned to them in concentrated form. The systematic deception, the public humiliation, the gradual revelation of betrayal, all of it was about to unfold in front of the entire Millhaven community that had been unknowingly facilitating their affair. The series finale. For 1 week, I'd systematically exposed Trevor and Cassandra's 7-month affair through legal channels, professional networks, and social media evidence. They remained completely unaware that their world was about to collapse. The Millhaven Medical Foundation's charity brunch would become the venue for the most calculated public revelation our community had ever witnessed. Saturday morning at the Millhaven Harbor Club arrived with crystalline autumn weather that seemed designed for dramatic revelations. The Medical Foundation's annual charity brunch drew 300 of our community's most influential residents, hospital board members, business leaders, city council representatives, and social organizers who shaped public opinion throughout our coastal region.
Trevor dressed with particular care for the event, selecting his finest navy suit and the platinum cufflinks I had given him for our 5th anniversary. His confidence radiated the satisfaction of someone who believed he had successfully navigated a marital crisis through skillful emotional management. He helped me choose jewelry and offered compliments about my appearance with the attentiveness of a devoted husband, rather than someone who had systematically betrayed me for 7 months. "I'm so grateful we worked through this difficult period," he said while adjusting his tie in our bedroom mirror, the same mirror that had reflected his naked encounters with Cassandra just days earlier. "Today feels like a fresh start for our marriage, Rachel. I promise you'll never have reason to doubt my commitment again." Cassandra arrived at the Harbor Club separately, wearing an elegant emerald dress that complemented the pearl necklace Trevor had purchased for her using our joint credit card. She greeted various community members with her usual charm, apparently confident that our friendship could be restored through careful social maneuvering and eventual private apologies. Neither suspected that Foundation President Linda Morrison had prepared a special presentation for the morning's program, or that Dr. Harrison Blake had coordinated with other hospital administrators to address what he termed community integrity concerns during the event's formal proceedings. Foundation President Morrison began the morning's program with customary acknowledgments of major donors and community supporters before transitioning to what she announced as a special recognition of professional excellence and personal integrity that defines our community's values. "Ladies and gentlemen," Morrison continued, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had managed Millhaven's social hierarchy for 2 decades. "This morning, we want to celebrate individuals whose dedication to ethical conduct and professional excellence exemplifies the character we value in our medical community." The large projection screen displayed my professional photograph alongside career achievements that included surgical statistics, patient satisfaction ratings, and community service contributions spanning 12 years of medical practice. Morrison detailed my recent innovations in cardiac surgery techniques and recognition from regional medical associations for excellence in patient care. But then the presentation shifted to what Morrison described as concerning patterns of behavior that undermine the trust and integrity our community depends upon. The screen displayed financial documentation showing systematic misuse of joint accounts, hotel reservations charged without spousal knowledge, and gift purchases that constituted theft from a dedicated medical professional. Trevor's face drained of color as he recognized credit card statements, hotel receipts, and jewelry store invoices that chronicled his affair with mathematical precision. Cassandra attempted to leave her table, but found her exit blocked by other attendees who were studying the financial evidence with growing understanding of the systematic deception it revealed. "These documents," Morrison explained to the increasingly attentive audience, "demonstrate how 2 individuals exploited the trust and financial resources of Dr. Montenegro while she dedicated herself to saving lives and serving our community. The evidence shows 7 months of calculated fraud disguised as marital support and loyal friendship." The presentation continued with social media evidence that exposed Cassandra's systematic documentation of her conquest of my private spaces, contrasted with hospital records showing my work schedule during the times she was posting intimate photos from our home. The timeline was undeniable and devastating. The reaction from Millhaven's professional community was immediate and comprehensive. Dr. Blake stood to address Trevor directly, announcing that the hospital system would no longer contract landscape architecture services from someone who had demonstrated such fundamental character deficiencies. The loss of medical facility contracts would effectively destroy Trevor's business within the local market. Chamber of Commerce President Robert Chen formally revoked both Trevor and Cassandra's membership privileges, citing behavior incompatible with the organization's ethical standards for professional networking and business development. Their exclusion from chamber events would eliminate crucial sources of client referrals and industry connections.
Mayor Patricia Hendricks announced that the city would review all municipal contracts with vendors who had demonstrated systematic deception and financial fraud, effectively blacklisting Trevor from public landscaping projects that had provided steady income for his practice. Most devastating was the response from social leaders throughout the community. Table after table of influential residents approached me with expressions of support while completely ignoring Trevor and Cassandra, who sat in stunned isolation as their social foundation crumbled in real time. Trevor attempted damage control through desperate explanations to anyone who would listen, but his protests about private marital difficulties fell on deaf ears among community members who had witnessed comprehensive evidence of systematic fraud and deception. Cassandra fled the event entirely, leaving through the kitchen exit to avoid confronting the professional and social consequences of her calculated betrayal. Attorney Patricia Lawson approached our table during the presentation's conclusion, carrying legal documents that formalized the consequences of Trevor's systematic financial fraud. The divorce papers included asset protection clauses that would prevent Trevor from accessing any joint accounts or property pending full accounting of his unauthorized expenditures. "Mr. Montenegro," Lawson announced in her clear courtroom voice, audible to surrounding tables, "you are served with divorce proceedings that include claims for financial fraud, emotional distress, and breach of fiduciary duty. The documented evidence of your systematic theft from joint marital accounts will support full asset recovery plus damages." The Millhaven Harbor Inn's general manager personally delivered a trespassing notice that banned Trevor from the property where he had conducted his affair using fraudulently obtained reservations. The hotel's policy regarding credit card fraud would result in criminal charges if Trevor attempted to make future reservations at any property within their management company's portfolio. But the most comprehensive consequences involved professional reputation destruction that would follow Trevor and Cassandra throughout their careers. Word of their systematic deception had spread through professional networks extending far beyond Millhaven's borders, creating a reputation trail that would affect their employability and business relationships for years to come. 6 months later, my life had been completely transformed in ways I never anticipated when I walked into our bedroom that Tuesday afternoon. The divorce settlement awarded me full ownership of our Victorian mansion, full recovery of funds Trevor had stolen for his affair, and additional damages that reflected the systematic nature of his deception. Trevor moved to Portland after his landscape architecture practice collapsed due to lost contracts and reputation damage throughout the Pacific Northwest professional community. His attempts to rebuild his career were hampered by the comprehensive documentation of his character deficiencies that followed him through industry networks and professional references. Cassandra's marketing career similarly suffered irreparable damage when Coastal Creative Solutions terminated her employment due to client concerns about professional judgment and ethical reliability. Her systematic deception of her closest friend while conducting an affair created trust issues that made her unemployable within Millhaven's interconnected business community. But the most significant transformation occurred within my own sense of self-worth and professional confidence. Discovering my ability to address systematic deception through strategic thinking rather than emotional reaction had revealed capabilities I never knew I possessed. My surgical skills had always been precise and systematic, but applying that same methodology to personal relationships created a foundation of self-respect that transformed every aspect of my life. The medical community's response to my situation had strengthened my professional relationships and led to new leadership opportunities within regional healthcare organizations. My reputation for handling complex problems with grace and strategic thinking had opened doors to consulting work and speaking engagements that enhanced both my income and professional satisfaction. Standing in my beautifully maintained garden 6 months after that devastating discovery, I realized that Trevor and Cassandra had inadvertently given me the greatest gift possible: the knowledge that I was capable of protecting myself against any form of systematic exploitation or deception. The betrayal had been devastating, but my response had been empowering. Learning to value my own worth enough to demand appropriate treatment had transformed not just my marriage situation, but my entire approach to personal and professional relationships. Setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's essential for self-respect and healthy relationships. When people systematically exploit your trust and resources while counting on your emotional attachment to prevent consequences, you're not in a relationship, you're funding your own abuse. The most effective response to systematic deception is systematic accountability. Document everything, protect your interests legally, and never allow emotional manipulation to override evidence-based decision-making. Sometimes, the people who betray us most completely are also the ones who teach us our greatest strength. Trevor and Cassandra showed me exactly how valuable I was by working so hard to exploit that value. My response showed them, and me, exactly what happens when someone finally recognizes their own worth. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever discovered that people you trusted were systematically exploiting your generosity or professional success? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and remember, you deserve relationships based on respect, not just what you can provide to others. Hit that subscribe button if this series helped you recognize the importance of protecting your own interests, and turn on notifications for more stories about setting boundaries and reclaiming the respect you deserve. 2 incredible stories are waiting for you right below. If this one grabbed your attention, these next ones will too. Click to dive in.